You expecting a quorum, Tim?
We are. I think, Amanda, we've only heard from Scott, right?
Yes, that's correct. So I think everyone else should be able to make it. I know that, was it Jane, I think was a tentative, but
Okay.
I believe everyone else is planning to join us.
So Tim, nice article about you and GR Mag.
Oh, thank you. I was a little reluctant to do a profile piece, but yeah, I thought they did a good job.
They did, very nice.
Thank you.
I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us so far, Amanda? 7 board members?
I think I see 8.
8, which is a quorum if we want to get started. Yeah, I think we have 8, Bob.
Okay. Oh, there's Emily.
There's Eric.
And Eric
Yeah.
just popped on?
Starting late.
Eric's on now? Okay.
Problem,
Here I
thanks.
am. Yep.
All right. So now we have 10, huh? Good.
Yep.
Well, why don't we get started? It's a couple minutes after, and we do have a quorum. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Downtown Improvement District.
Bob, maybe before we get into that, I think Amanda's going to do a quick announcement, just a reminder on Teams, and then we were going to do a roll call to start the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do have one new member and we'll get an introduction of her soon, but just a quick highlight. So make sure to mute your mic if you're not speaking. Public comments is at the end. You can use the chat feature for comments and questions if you'd like to hold off from interrupting, and we can address those. There is also one new thing for this year. While we are meeting virtually per Open Meetings Act, we do at this time need to announce, all of the board members at least, need to identify yourself and announce that you are participating remotely and state where you are participating from. So that would be either the city or the county and the state that you're in. And I will just go through roll call, and I think it's in alphabetical order. So once I say your name, if you can just let me know you're here, and we'll go through that little exercise here.
Do we say where we are from?
Well, where you are currently.
As in
participating
physically
from.
located, or what am I
Correct.
doing? Okay.
Yes, where you're physically located. It doesn't have to be an exact address, just a general city or county. And the only reason you would not have to do that is if you're participating in active military duty.
Wow.
So I know it's fun.
Glad you know all the rules.
And maybe before we go, Jessica, I believe you were on the call. Did we miss anything there?
Yeah.
Did we miss anything there?
No, that's a good summary. It's sort of a quirky requirement, but the gist of it is if you could please just quickly state that you are participating virtually, and then just the county and state where you are right now, nothing specific.
And I will just go through the list here. Monica App.
I'm here.
And if you could just state your name. Sorry, there's a little feedback, but if you could state your name and then and the fact that you are participating remotely, and then give the city and state that you're participating in.
Yes. Monica Steinley App. I am participating remotely in Kent County, Michigan.
Michael Bishop.
Yep, Mike Bishop here, participating participating remotely, Kent County, Michigan. Thank you.
Eric DeLong,
Hello, Eric DeLong, participating remotely from Kent County, Michigan.
Mike Ellis,
Mike Ellis, participating remotely from Naples, Florida.
jealous. Jane Geitzen? No. Bob Herr.
Yep, Bob Herr, remotely from Kent County.
Emily Lopes,
Good afternoon. It's Emily Lokes. I am participating remotely from Grand Rapids in Kent County.
Josh Lunger,
Josh Unger, participating remotely from Kent County, Michigan.
Andrew Martin,
Andrew Martin, participating remotely from Kent County, Michigan.
Jess Sladen, Jessica on. Denny Sturdivant,
This is Denny Sturdivant, participating remotely from Ottawa County.
Ashley Ward,
Ashley Ward here, participating remotely from Rockford, Michigan and Kent County.
Pat Waring,
Yes, hi, Amanda. I am participating remotely in Allendale, Ottawa County.
and Scott, I don't believe is on. Weirding. Daniel Williams, are you joining us? I don't see him on here either. That would be it.
Okay. And
Thank
we
you,
have,
everyone.
thank you. We have two new board members joining us today. Monica Epp, where's Monica?
I'm here.
And Monica, tell us, you're with Rockford? Tell
I
us
am.
Yep.
Yes. So my name is Monica Steinley App. I am the Executive Vice President of Real Estate and Property Management here at Rockford Construction. I've been here for about 4 years. Have been actively engaged in our Grand Rapids community, specifically downtown and near neighborhoods, since about 2009. Also serve on the DGRI Board of Advisors and a couple of other groups focused on downtown. So I'm really excited to be able to participate and to help support our efforts through the DID. Thank you.
Are you taking Kurt's spot?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, welcome. And Ashley Ward, tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm Ashley Ward. I'm a Grand Rapids native, born and raised. I've actually lived or worked in downtown Grand Rapids since my adult life. And I own a property on Monroe Center, right above Brick and Porter. I own a floor of real estate there where I have my office that houses my firm Hire for Hope. We focus on executive boutique recruiting for searches in West Michigan, primarily with a diverse client base, as well as behavioral and cognitive analytics to help get the right person in the right seat. And then the hope part of Hire for Hope is that we advocate and donate 10% of our profit to help support women in need through nonprofits in the Grand Rapids area. So I'm excited to join you.
Welcome, glad to have you. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's, let's follow the format on voting for approval. If rather than go through, Jessica, do we have to go through the whole roster? Can we do it negatively? Take no votes.
You can do it. You can do it negatively, Bob.
Yeah, that's.
You can just see if anybody wishes to refrain or vote no. You can just do it that way. Yep.
All right. Very good. All right. First item is we need the minutes for the November 19th meeting were distributed. Hopefully you've had a chance to read them. I'll need a motion to approve.
I have one edit because I was looking too closely.
Yep.
And the title of home outreach team, it should be homeless outreach team. I know that's a critical change, but it was going to bother me if I didn't bring it up.
Thank you, Josh. I'll make
The
that
details
correction.
matter, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then I will motion with that minor correction to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second, any other changes or suggestions? Hearing none. Anybody wish to abstain? Or vote vote no if you don't want to approve them? Any negative votes? Hearing none, the minutes have been approved.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to add, for the benefit of everyone, I did include in the packet following the minutes the COVID monthly report that our team has been putting together to kind of track some data and analytics around activity in downtown. So that was included in the packet. If there are any questions, happy to take those or take them offline.
Interesting information. Yeah. Anybody, what is it a chore to take a few minutes to walk through that?
Not a chore at all. I just wanted to be mindful of the clock. I guess what I'd point out is back in March, our team started to just track information around business closures, business openings, looking at our head counters and comparing that to historical data. And then over the months, we've been adding in content as we've presented this, and have been getting good recommendations of information that both businesses find helpful, but just other community members to kind of capture how things have changed or not in downtown over the past almost year now. So we're going to continue to update this throughout the pandemic and the shutdown, just so people know kind of the overall impacts. And again, I'd invite any comments or feedback either now or offline, and we'll continue to include it in your packet so you can see kind of the trend lines.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, number 3, is the December financial statement, 6 months. And Tricia, you want to walk us through them?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Pretty normal activity in the DID going on the last 3 months, nothing too out of the ordinary. Collections of the assessments are happening. Some of the districts looks like they've pretty much collected everything already. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now or to dig in and do some research if needed.
Tricia, on the balance sheet, what's this reserve for encumbrances on? It's not very big, but
that would be an invoice that's in the process of getting paid.
Right.
Those funds are encumbered, but it hasn't. The check hasn't cut yet. It's
put it there
showing.
You use that rather than payables?
It's a step before payables.
Okay. Another question on this revenue and expense. We got negative earnings on investments. I was assuming these were a little more. Are these have some rate risk to them?
We're still showing negative from the reversal of the mark-to-market entry that we need to do. All of our investments at the end of the year have to be brought up to market value, and then that entry is reversed. Typically, by this point, we would have earned enough interest to cover any reversals, but right now, at this point, we haven't. Hopefully, we will, and depending on where the market's at in June, when this entry needs to be done again, and all those investments are again brought up to market value, you would see a positive interest earnings there. I mean, that's the goal. But yeah, I know it looks strange. Mostly it's just an accounting entry that needs to be done and reversed.
So you reverse the mark-to-market at the end of the year, you reverse on July 1?
Correct.
And then we got to earn it back as the coupons or whatever come in, all right?
Absolutely. And a lot of those investments could, they may not mature completely for another 10 years. So it just really depends on the length of time of investments, what's going on in the market, that can change from year to year.
Okay, so some of them are long-term investments.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And I do need a motion for approval for statement C.
For the expenditures?
Correct.
Yeah. Any questions on statement C from any of the members? Hearing none, I will take a vote. Vote. Any abstentions? Hearing none. Any no votes? Hearing none. Those are approved. Thank you.
We did not actually get a motion or support for that yet.
Okay, sorry. Somebody want a motion?
I'll move to approve statement C.
Thank you, Andrew.
This is Josh. I'll support.
All right, now we got it backwards. We got it done, Amanda.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for helping me. Okay, Tim, the ambassador report.
Yeah, I will actually invite Rebecca Friends, who I believe is on, to kind of walk through the annual report that was also included in your packet.
Bob, this is Denny, can I just ask, you said we approved statement C, but it was B, wasn't it? That we just approved, not C?
No, I think it's the expenditures that we have to approve, which is C.
Okay, so you were just asking questions about the income and expense statement,
Yep.
which is B.
Yep.
We don't have to act on B?
No, I don't.
Just statement C.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for clarifying, Denny.
Hi. When I first began creating this report, I thought it would be pretty short and dull, but it's quite the opposite. We're actually very busy this year. It's just a different way than usual. You'll notice a difference in our statistics from last year to this year, and I'll kind of touch on those a little bit. But there are a lot of pictures in this presentation. I'm sorry, go back to the previous slide. So I'll move quickly through it, but feel free to stop me if you have any questions and let me know if I'm coming up on my time. I chose this cover picture because I thought it was really important to recognize the work that we did. We were essential throughout the summertime, and I feel like this picture represents that. It's a very powerful picture to me. Next slide. I wrote a lot here in this, but the short version is I've kept our team safe, instituting strict protocols since March. We've only had 3 ambassadors contract COVID, and to my knowledge, none were between coworkers. And we were also gifted some handmade face masks from a few different sources, which was pretty essential in the beginning when we struggled to find any sort of PPE. And I'm really grateful for that. Next slide. We began sanitizing touch points in our downtown daily, including door handles, meters, handrails, anything that someone may touch, really, including elevator buttons. Although I don't believe that we tracked everything that we did sanitize, we did record over 30,000 touch points being sanitized, and we even got a shout out from Brush Studios, which I thought I was really proud of that. Next slide. Our hospitality interactions were much fewer throughout the summer, but we did still get a chance to help pedestrians in 2020. We kept our distance, and I kept our team rich in hand sanitizer for situations where we may be touching objects that others have handled. So as you see, I have a picture of one of our ambassadors taking a picture for other people. So we sanitize our hands before and then after we touch their phones. We did get to table at one event, which was great, the Chalk It Up event. Next slide. You'll notice on here that our hospitality stats took a drastic turn from the past 2 years, which was to be expected. Our directions provided and general engagement was substantially lower, but our information stats were almost 7,000 more than in 2019. And we did visit about the same amount of businesses in 2019 that we did in 2019. Next slide. We used our equipment more this year than we did in 2019, specifically the ATLV. We altered the way that we used this workforce multiplier in 2020. Rick spent almost every shift that he could using it, and we racked up 4 times the amount of hours as we have in the past, really making it worth its money. Next slide. Due to the lack of pedestrians, we got an opportunity to spend more time clearing weeds, so I thought I would recognize that as well. We hit over 5,000 block faces this year. We don't have 5,000 block faces in our downtown, but we do record every time we clear weeds from a block face. This year we did track our weed removal slightly different in the past. We recorded every weed we pulled in the past, but I felt like that didn't really provide an accurate depiction of how we're keeping downtown weed free. So you'll see how it was affected in this, this slide here. Our stats look like much less than in the past year, but the weed removal variance really only accounts for 123,000 stats, but we did double our ability to water planters and pots with an addition of 2 horticulture staff. And we removed almost a third more graffiti tags, stickers, and more. We touched more infrastructure than we have in the past, and the infrastructure statistics that we track, those are created when we change trash bags, empty cigarette urns, replace dog bags, stations, and a lot of these this year we're actually deploying new infrastructure and repairing damaged ones. Next slide. Oh, that's missing the little cigarette pack. Our cigarette recycling program was down drastically due to the lack of people downtown, but total we have recycled over 1.5 million butts, so that's pretty amazing. That is the equivalent of 75,456 packs of cigarettes. Next. That cigarette pack. This slide here just shows a snapshot of all the beautiful flowers we had over each season, so I thought I would recognize that. You can move on to the next slide. As I did mention earlier, we were able to add 2 horticulture staff this year, and our planters and pots have never gotten as much attention as they did this year in the past. Next slide. DJI purchased some new trash cans for our downtown that align with the city guidelines. So this year we did replace over 55 trash cans with the new designs, and we deployed 20 new trash cans in new locations. We even reached our southern cleaning boundary of Granville and Wealthy, which has been a goal of mine, and we added more to South Division as well. We are taking the old trash cans and deploying them into even more new locations. Next slide. We got a chance to host, Grow 1000 volunteers, where we had 4 15-year-olds that helped us with everything from horticulture to cleaning to hospitality. The loo was also installed this year, and our team has cleaned and sanitized it at least 3 times a day, often more. If you haven't gotten a chance to see this beauty, I suggest that you do. I always want a public restroom that I feel comfortable bringing my family to, and I believe that we continue to achieve that goal. Next slide. A few other special projects pictured here. We repaired some poorly maintained trash cans and cleaned a bioswale along Wealthy Street near Ionia that was pretty bad off. Next slide. Social Zones was our first major project of the year. Our team built almost 200 tables and deployed them alongside over 700 chairs through our downtown. We repaired them as needed. We sanitized them daily, multiple times a day. We organized them back in place and redeployed them a few times when necessary. I was really happy that we could be a part of keeping people safe while supporting our downtown businesses. Next slide. A few highlights. We have a couple of shots of our team helping to clean up glass on May 31st alongside hundreds of people that came together to clean up our downtown. That was a pretty beautiful sight. I wanted to highlight that we also safely dispose of needles, as I think it's a little known service that we provide to downtown. And this year we also assisted with the gleaning efforts throughout the summer. Next slide. Our team deployed hand sanitizing stations daily throughout the downtown during the summertime. We put up umbrellas on Monroe Center for outdoor eating. And mobility is such an important aspect to any downtown. Even though the scooters were not our responsibility, our team made sure that we picked them up and moved them out of the passage of sidewalks and ADA ramps. Next slide. It wouldn't be a report if I didn't talk about how my amazing team. So they basically did all the work. We were thanked by so many wonderful entities, including the mayor, and some even provided us with lunch. It was really great to see that people recognize the importance of our work during this time. We also had a fun opportunity to participate in Degagé's pillowcase project, so I have the team pictured here with our tie-dyed pillowcases. Next slide. Some more fun shots here, including our first picture of 2020 at the New Year's Eve ball drop, and our team having a taco bar before the world ended. I do want to mention that any picture that you saw on our report of unmasked staff is from pre-COVID time or during the time we were told masks weren't needed. So once we were informed that that was pretty important, our team has been masked up since. Next slide. Santa visited our team this holiday season. We provided them with ambassador essentials like hand sanitizer, and then Block by Block also gave all of our staff and every ambassador across the country a gift card in lieu of a holiday party this year. I also wanted to recognize Evangeline and Rick, who hit their 5-year employment with us. They work really hard. They're well recognized in our district. And our ambassador of 2020 was Jason Lewecki, who often chooses to clean the toughest zone in our district. So we recognize him this year. And that is all. Any questions I can answer?
Bob,
So,
Bob, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. But good report and doing great stuff. And it's been a challenging year for everybody, certainly, but I think we've been helpful in making it healthy downtown. Anybody have any comments, questions, observations?
Looks like Mr. DeLong has his hand raised.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I do have my hand raised. So Rebecca, I want to thank you and Melvin and all the ambassadors for all the work that you did this year to get through this part of the pandemic. The social zones were huge for downtown, and you were a big part of making them, not only getting them established, but keeping them viable. That was important. Maybe even more important was the work you did helping with homelessness, working with our HAT team and the things that we were doing to help with homelessness in downtown. And really appreciate your work and your support there. And thanks also for taking on 4 of our Grow 1000 kids. That was really an important experience for them. And you'll have another opportunity this summer probably. So, but anyway, I think you've had a great year, and I think this year, maybe more than any year, proved the value of ambassadors downtown. So I'm really excited about your work. So thank you.
Thanks, Eric. You're gonna make me cry.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Eric.
great comments. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Rebecca, thank you again. Next, Tim, we're going to go to Melvin. Going to give us an update on where we are in reauthorization.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Melvin,
go ahead,
Tim.
Tim.
Jump in,
Oh,
man.
I was just going to say, hopefully everybody's aware that we are in the midst of reauthorizing the Downtown Improvement District. And if you recall, at our last board meeting, we were authorized to engage PUMA in doing some analysis on some of the conditions within the DID, specifically looking at our snowmelt district, the change in legislation regarding resident-owned condominiums or properties in downtown improvement districts, and then also taking a look at our nonprofit situation here downtown as well. Brad from PUMA is here, so I'm actually going to pitch it to him, and he's going to walk us through the analysis that PUMA has conducted for us.
Great, thanks, Melvin. And it's a pleasure to be back, at least virtually, in Grand Rapids. I'm Brad Siegel. I am in Denver, Colorado. And many of you on the board may remember we were last in Grand Rapids just back in February of last year, which seems like decades ago, but we were in town in February. And we were working with all of you and the staff on reauthorization planning. So we were asked to come back and do some analysis of 3 things, actually. So I'll start with snowmelt districts, and Melvin's got a very text-heavy slide on there, but essentially we were looking at, are you better off consolidating your districts, your snowmelt districts? You have three snowmelt districts. They're all separate, and they have different methodologies. So the thought is, are we better off consolidating them? And from a policy standpoint, we would say yes. From a financial standpoint, we would probably say more analysis needed. So from a policy standpoint, there are some inequities between the different districts in terms of how they perform. Some run at a surplus, some run at a deficit. We feel that overall, and the reason for this is just the differences in the districts. So Monroe Center is the largest one, Monument Park is the smallest one, Louis Campo is sort of medium. You got this small, medium, large thing going on, and that creates some inequities in terms of how the assessments are laid out. We think there's 2 compelling reasons that you may want to consider consolidating. One, it just creates more flexibility in managing this component of the improvement district. So by consolidating, it allows efficiencies in both operations and capital improvements. Also, from a budgeting standpoint, it provides this board with far more flexibility on how to budget among these districts and to move money around where it's needed. We think, and I know we got legal counsel on the call today. We think this could all be justified because essentially the benefit is the same in these districts. The benefit is that we're providing snowmelt services, and that service is pretty uniform. There are some differences, and we're aware of there's differences in terms of the technology and the age of the technology, but we think we can accommodate that in a consolidated district. And the other reason to do this is that these districts are fairly close together. Melvin, did you also include some of the financial analysis in these slides?
Yeah, Brad, I should mention the slides follow your memo pretty much in order.
Well done. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So these are the numbers we did. I think this information was sent to you in advance. So I mentioned that from a policy standpoint, we think this makes sense, but from a financial standpoint, we think it's yet to be determined, because when you start to consolidate these things and they have different methodologies, we start to create, I guess for lack of a better word, winners and losers in terms of rates. So what this analysis shows at the bottom of your screen is that if we did consolidate at the current budget, and the current consolidated budget is about $244,000 a year, if we consolidated at the current budget, the green areas on this is where districts and ratepayers would benefit because they'd be paying a lower rate. The red shows where they would not benefit because they'd be paying a higher rate. And so what we found is that Monument Park would pay considerably less, which I think is one of the objectives here. Monroe Center is a bit of a wash depending upon the type of property that you have. But Louis Campow, those properties pay significantly more. So that's a red flag for us, and that's why we're looking at additional analysis. Next slide, please. Bam. So nothing like throwing a lot of numbers at you guys. But again, you all, I believe the board members got the memo where this is. So this is just the analysis of really the largest properties in each district to see where they would fare in a consolidated district under the current budget. And then, as I mentioned, the Monument Park properties are lower, which is one of our objectives. Those are primarily nonprofit properties, and the Monument Park installation is newer. It has lower repair costs than Monroe Center. Monroe Center, I mentioned, is a bit of a wash, and there are some winners and some losers. And then in terms of Louis Campow, that's where our concern is, because those rates would go up. Interestingly, the reason why is because of parking structures at Louis Campow, where you don't have them in these other districts. And it's that parking piece, which is only 10% of your assessment, but it is that parking piece that's driving some of these differences, which we call distortion. There's some distortion in doing all this. Next slide, please. So we also looked at another alternative, which was to leave Louis Campow alone. And then look at combining both Monroe Center and Monument Park. This we think is fairly easy to digest, both on a policy and a financial standpoint. These two districts are pretty much adjacent. By combining them, it does relieve some of the financial burden on Monument Park, which is an objective, without transferring much to Monroe Center. Next slide I think illustrates some of the impacts on properties. So yeah, you can see the Monument Park properties have a lower cost, while Monroe Center increases, but it increases at a much more nominal rate than we were looking at when we had Louis Campow involved in there. Should we pause here? Melvin, do the additional slides get into different issues? Is that correct?
Yeah, so the additional slides will cover the condo piece as well as the nonprofit piece.
Yeah. So let me end this discussion of snowmelt, because I'm sure it'll raise a ton of questions just on its own, and I'll rely on Melvin and Tim to be the time managers here. But the sort of bottom line of the snow melt analysis thus far is we do think there are compelling reasons for the DID to explore this. We do think there's some additional analysis to do and maybe some alternative methods of assessment to try to make it more fair, if you will, particularly for the Louis Campo district. But if for some reason we can't do that, we do think it's compelling reason to at least consider merging Monroe and Monument Park. And maybe with that, I'll pause for board comment or question.
This is Bob. One of the compelling reasons that we want to look at this is on the Monument Park properties. Those are, most of the assessment payers are voluntary because they're nonprofits. And over the since we really started that district, as a voluntary payer, they've struggled to make the payments, and we're collecting about maybe a third of the cost to operate that system. And here a year ago, we had to subsidize that district by taking money from the area-wide assessment area district, 25,000 to put into that district just so we could cover their operating costs. So long-term, we will need to do something. It's just what's the most equitable, safe, and best way to do it. But it does need some more analysis. You know, if Brad and his group made all these computations based on projected costs. Actual cost to operate these have been significantly less in the last 4 to 5 years. So we're going to see if that makes this a little easier, a little more palatable to at least potentially combine Monroe and Monument going forward.
Yeah, and on that note, so we're working with Brad right now, as well as our steering committee, so our reauthorization steering committee, to look at that additional analysis. We are going to be looking a little bit closer at the budget to make sure that it's meeting, the historical operational needs. I think the other thing that Brad touched on was potentially looking at a formula tweak just for a snowmelt district. We could, if the board felt it was necessary to kind of accomplish this overall goal, we could look at revising the methodology. So I think between now and our next board meeting, when we'll likely need the recommendation for the overall authorization plan, that's the work we'll be doing. And so, as questions come up, or if people have additional thoughts on that between now and then, please let us know.
What would happen if you took the parking out of the formula?
That's one of the things we're looking at.
Okay.
I think it would help pretty significantly, particularly with the Louis Campo issues. I don't have the exact numbers, but we've been playing around with that a little bit, and I think it would potentially solve the issue that has been created that we've identified by combining them all.
And Bob, one of the things we're looking at is and this is something we do in districts all over the country, but looking at the parking, still assessing the land on the parking, but not necessarily the structures.
Gotcha. Thank you.
This is Denny. I just want to reiterate a point I made before, but about the snow melt system is, I think there was a conversation about whether or not we are trying to incorporate into these repair and replacement reserves and maintenance on the systems themselves. And the point I want to make here too is that there is a pretty substantial public benefit to the snow melt system that goes way beyond the benefit to the property owners in terms of people walking downtown. And Monument Square is actually a park. A public park area. And so I think there's a lot of, I had suggested that we look at the operating costs, and that makes sense to me to be looking at that in the assessment formula, but making sure we're pulling out some of the maintenance repair costs and seeing if that isn't something that should be shifted away from the property owners to the DDA itself or something. As another way of looking at how to keep this affordable down there. Clearly, there's a benefit to the property owners, but I think somebody mentioned it in another meeting that it wasn't the property owners on Monument Square, I don't think, that requested snow melt system. It was installed in part because of the park there. I mean, and that's, probably true everywhere. Nobody necessarily asked for an assessment district. The majority probably didn't. But I just think you got to be mindful of the cost of this for the maintenance side of it, and figure out how to split the operating minus the maintenance minus the repair costs out of that, to maybe as part of the conversation we have here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you want to?
Should we go to our next topic?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. Just wait a minute. Josh, did you have a question here? I see a comment that came up.
No, I was just thinking along Denny's lines a little bit with, and right. This is obviously a complicated issue, and I can tell that you are putting a lot of work into it. But I think it'd be worth exploring if parks should contribute, particularly considering their forever stream of revenue from the millage that passed a couple years ago.
Let me add that the PUMA team has given this a little bit more thought since we met with the executive committee, and we actually think there's 3 cost components to your snow melt district. There's operations, but we also think there's a difference between repair and then replacement. And so what we're doing is we are looking at your operations budget is lower. It is a way to lower it, but there also is a repair element to this that arguably is also part of operations, if you will, or maintenance. What is different is replacement. That's a whole different ballgame in our view, and that's where we heartily agree with Denny on the public good and all of that. And there has been a pretty large reserve built on Monroe Center, I think, with the anticipation of replacement. So I think we're questioning that third component, but even with operations and with some repair capability, there is the option to reduce the budget, which will make these scenarios and making this quest for fairness and equity, I think, will help us if we're able to reduce some of the financial burden. So it's a long around way of saying that we're still working on it, but I think we're hopeful we can find a way that meets both objectives here, that from a policy standpoint, it meets the goal of a snow melt district that makes just more functional sense in terms of how you manage it, and then financially making sure we're not creating undue burden on specific properties or sub areas.
And historically, just for the benefit of everyone, historically, particularly with Monument Park and Monroe Center, the DDA has been a funder of those capital improvements to install the system, and it's been the DID that has been financing the operations and repair and maintenance primarily. There is still a component of DDA support there too.
I guess the only thing that I would add is I want to thank Josh for bringing up the park assessment, because I was going to bring it up too, so he beat me to it. So I didn't have to be the one that did it. And so if there is, I don't know if we're getting a share of the Monument Park District assessment or not. So, because I know we pay a portion of the street assessment on Monroe Center, and for that snow melt, because it melts the snow off the street. So it should reduce our snow removal burden there. And I think the same argument can be made for Monument Park. I'm also a fan of finding a way to rationalize the districts, and at least the 2 districts for sure. I think makes sense. So I think we're making good progress here.
Thanks, Eric. I would say that there is also for Monroe Center, obviously Rosa Parks also has a snow melt element as well. So maybe this is something we can look at further, Brad, as we're doing some additional analysis.
Oh, wait a minute, don't take it too far.
You offer it.
Well, just since we're continuing to appeal to your the wonky sides of your brain, we'll continue with, we had 2 more analyses, one related to condos and the third related to nonprofit properties. The condo analysis, this is something that our understanding is the Michigan statute was amended this year to allow local districts to assess sort of the option to assess owner-occupied residential. You already assess apartments, but you don't assess owner-occupied residential. So we're looking at that. We're looking at what does that mean to the district? What share of the district would the condos add? And then from a policy standpoint, what are the options for assessing the condos if we want to go in that direction? And we're employing for better or worse, our own sense of best practices, because we do work on these nationwide, and we've worked in, oh gosh, I don't know, more than a dozen states where we've already developed assessment methods for condos, probably 20 states where we've done that. So just real quickly here in Grand Rapids, you've got 360 parcels that we've got good data on. There's an additional 60 parcels that we're aiming to get additional data. And if you lump these all together, this would generate, using your existing methodology, it would generate roughly another $30,000 in revenue if we assess the condos. So it's about, we're talking 2 to 3% of the budget that we would recommend if you do add condos, that it's additive, that you add that to your budget, acknowledging that these services are benefiting these folks. So next slide, please. So, so we had all sorts of fun with this one. So we looked at your existing methodology with the data that we have. So the first option here is to charge the condos with the current rate structure. Currently, on how you assess properties, just a quick refresher, you have a combination of building area, frontage, property area, and parking. And 30% of the assessment goes to building, 30 to frontage, 30 to property area, 10% to parking. In terms of the condos, we have reliable data on the units themselves in terms of square footage, and then frontage, and then the land, which is the property area. What we don't have is parking, and in many cases we just don't have parking. So based on the data that we have, which is about 90% of the weight, we also felt an appropriate benefit from the district to the condos is about 90% of your budget. We'd essentially argue that the condos benefit fully from your clean and safe services, which are about 90% of your budget, and they benefit less from some of the marketing and promotional functions. Having said all that, if we take the existing methodology, we flow it through all these condos, the average unit is about $84.50 a year on an annual basis, and there's a range there from $32 to $235 a year. There is, again, this notion of distortion that I mentioned, in the sense that you got a lot of condos concentrated in one building. So the River House has a lot of condos, and because it is such a large building, the average unit cost is less. So there's sort of a fairness issue that starts to pop up in our mind there. So we have three options here for the condos. The first one is using the existing rate structure. Next slide, please. The next one, which we've done in a lot of markets, again, we'd have to work with legal counsel on this because different legal counsel will approve different things. But we've done flat rates for condos in a lot of markets, and so that's a second option here. It certainly does simplify it. So if we said the average is $84.50, that essentially would be the flat rate that everyone would pay. It's certainly easy and straightforward to understand. But what it does ignore is the size of the condo and the potential benefits. If you've got a 600 square foot studio versus a 4,000 square foot penthouse, it's not really acknowledging that difference. So we do have a third option here, which we think may be the most attractive solution of all this, and that is to go to just base the condos on unit square footage, period. So just using one of the three variables from your existing methodology. We still have that spread from about 35 to 250, but it is based again on the square footage of the unit. You can see the river house distortion disappears. So we think it's a more fair way to do that. So our suggestion is either, if one, we don't know if we're going to go into condos, but if we do, we'd suggest either the flat rate or the unit square footage. So with all that exciting information, I will pause and we'll see if we get any board comments on that.
And does anybody have any questions of Brad or comments or the authorization committee? You know, certainly the per square foot seems easy and more fair. That's kind of where if we do anything, that's probably the direction we go. But this, you know, the original thought was condominium residential property was excluded from the business improvement districts. Grand Rapids started an initiative a couple of years ago to change that in case we wanted to begin assessing. It levels the playing field, you could say, between apartment, residential, and condominium owners. Both benefit downtown, but we haven't done it in the past, and if we did it, we would need to get city approval.
This is Denny. I don't have an strong opinion one way or the other about whether it should or shouldn't be, but it seems to me that from a political standpoint, it might be a good idea to conduct some kind of satisfaction survey with condo owners, if we know where they are, who they are, whatever, about the services being offered and their sentiment about those services. If it's positive, that could actually help make the case for why it should be included. If it's not, you know, you got a bigger political problem with that. So it seems like a little prep when you add a whole new class of folks into the mix in terms of paying. And then I think the other question for the city is this an incentive, disincentive, neutral on the impact of trying to create more homeownership downtown?
Hey, Denny, Mike Bishop here. I think it's going to be tough to survey, excuse me, the condo owners. Excuse me. I think it's hard for them to see exactly what the DID does for them. Probably the best way would be to show them, take away the services for a week and have them understand what that really means to them. But I hear you. Certainly understand that they're a stakeholder in this, and they should, you know, if they're going to pay and we're going to assess them, I think they should have a voice. But I just don't know what we're going to get in the way of a survey. People are going to see it as an additional tax and not necessarily equate it to the services that they currently enjoy and have enjoyed.
Yeah, and when we first did this years and years ago, this is ancient history now, but we actually had the city, we broke out the difference between this is the services that you would get without the assessment, and these are the services you would get with the assessment, the add-on services. I don't know if we can still do that or not. It's gotten so mixed up and jumbled up, but if it were possible to do that could be a qualifier in the survey, saying these are the kinds of things that are paid for through the assessment. Are these services the kinds of services that you think help to enhance your quality of life and property values and so on and so forth, kind of thing. But again, you know, it's just something to throw out there.
Yeah, I think those are all good points. The one thing I would also point out, I think Brad mentioned this, was I think we've been thinking about it as an add-on to what's already in place, so that it's not, you know, this isn't supplementing an existing budget, but potentially through a survey or some other conversations, identifying things that are unique to homeowners, condo owners, that they would see as a benefit to being included in the assessment with. So, you know, there's probably a list of things that might include. But yeah, I think it's a good point. I think that the conversation around if we do this also relates to when. I don't know that if the committee is feeling strongly one way or the other, if I was reading the room, I feel like this year may not be the year. But we do think this is worth some additional conversation, and ultimately we would like to get condo owners in, just because other residents downtown pay into the assessment if they're apartment dwellers. So we do think there's a fairness component here, but recognizing the moment we're in and everything that's going on, whether or not this year is the right time, I think is probably is questionable.
Hey, Tim.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead, Denny.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought Denny was trying to talk. I didn't mean to talk over him or somebody else if that was the case. So, I mean, condo owners are benefiting from the services that the DID provides today. I think it's a slippery slope if we go to them and say, if you guys are interested, we're going to add something to the mix because of the dues or the special assessment that you guys would pay annually. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not self-sufficient today. We, the DID, we're not self-sufficient today as it relates to the ambassadors.
That's true.
A portion of that is subsidized by DGRI, right?
The DDA still carries a share.
I'm sorry, the DDA.
Of the ambassador program. Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm a little reluctant to promise new services when we're not self-sufficient as it relates to the services that we provide today.
I think the idea, Mike, I think we're all going the same way, would be to kind of outline over and above what the city does, what are we doing already district-wide that they're benefiting from, and do they feel that that's worth it?
Do they ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously we need to hear from the stakeholders, the folks. I don't own a condo downtown, so it's easy for me to say. But ultimately, if the feedback comes back and less than 50% of the people that responded are supportive, does that change our opinion? Because, I mean, from my perspective, they benefit from the services that are provided. And there's no way to cut back. It's just, it is what it is. We clean, beautify, provide safety. You know, we can't exclude their building.
For sake of time, we could move on, but I think the bottom line is we need to get, before we just do this politically, we need to somehow get their input.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Right.
We don't want to don't want to do this and then get sideswiped without getting some kind of feedback from them.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Just procedurally, that this would have to be approved by the city commission as part of our reauthorization. So there is that, and there's a public hearing that goes along with that. I think is we're all well versed in. So yeah, I think a lot of additional conversation is needed, I think, before we would make a recommendation, both on the methodology and the timing of doing anything like this. And yeah, Mike, I think you're bringing up good points. So happy to kind of continue that conversation offline.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Just 2 cents.
Yeah. Tim,
go ahead, Eric.
So I would say, you know, I don't know that they recognize the value. They kind of, you know, bought into the gestalt of what downtown is. That's why they're here. And I don't think they know how it happens. So they don't know that there is an assessment district and that there is all this extra work that goes into making it a beautiful, attractive place. So that's why they're here. But I don't know that they know how it got here or why it's like that. So, you know, Tim, one of Tim's staff, Anne Marie Buller, has a downtown network it's like a nascent neighborhood association for downtown. That could be one communication tool where a presentation like we saw today that we know about, if we were to present that to, and maybe we've done that already, Tim, I don't know. But if we were to have an ambassador section of, you know, every month or every quarter, whenever Anne Marie's meeting, so that they start to get familiar with what the ambassador is doing, we maybe could start building an affinity for the work of the ambassadors. And then you've got to figure out what's on their mind and downtown residents' mind. So what's on their mind are, I think, could be things like, when will events come back? You know, when can I go back to a restaurant? None of which we have control over. How are we doing with homelessness? And how are the ambassadors or the DID addressing homelessness? You know, those are things that are probably on their mind, you know, because I think they kind of come to believe that, yep, downtown's clean and beautiful, without having any idea of how it happened. So,
Good point. Very good point. Yep. We can use that as a way to communicate and educate. Right. I like that. Yep.
Thank you. I think Jess had her hand up too.
I did. Hey guys. Speaking to what Eric said, you know, I think there's a huge educational component because even with us on Bridge Street, the property owners just on the other side of Seward, they're always questioning why Rebecca and her crew don't come and pick up trash there, but they didn't understand on our Stockbridge Association that we're paying this side of the street, we're paying that assessment. It would be cool if we could somehow, and maybe this is too much for the situation we're in right now, but it would be great to get, Grand Valley back, if not back, but in the DID to help offset some of those costs. Because if I recall, when you guys were doing this, wasn't it more just kind of get it done and the boundaries look kind of wonky? Is that something that could come up at the same time with getting condos in, or is that just too much to do at one time?
Just Grand Valley, though they're not in the district, they do voluntarily contribute to the fund, to the assessment. They have since.
Oh, I thought they were out of it. I thought that they didn't pay. So, all right, thank you for educating me.
Yeah, they're not in the district, but they voluntarily pay. I think there are a couple of
we have a couple of things in the district.
pieces, but I think above and beyond that, they pay, yeah.
Well, shame on me. Thank you for educating me, guys. Appreciate it. Is it then just some other buildings right by where I am then? I can look at the map again. So, thank you.
Yeah, the full campus is not in, but they have property in the assessment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Jess, I don't think the new engineering building, for example, is in.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. The new, right.
Yeah, right by the Y. That one I don't believe is in the district. So.
It isn't, no.
I should have been more specific. So I was half right and half wrong. Thanks.
That's been Pat Waring's doing to make sure they stay in there. Pay, yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
Okay, Brad, you want to move to nonprofit?
Yeah, we'll move to nonprofit. A final thought for you guys on the residential is the state law was amended because there's increased residential in all districts in Michigan. So these are folks who are benefiting. And the final thought I would leave you with is it probably should be considered, whether it's this year or next year, but sooner than later, because you've got 400 condos now, and 5 years from now, you may have 2,000 condos, and it'll just get more difficult to consider this as time goes on. Meanwhile, you're going to have more and more people that are benefiting from the services you provide.
Good point.
Can I add one comment to that? I think, also keep in mind, I saw Josh Longer put a note in there about encouraging more condo development downtown. And I think we all need to keep in mind that if you live downtown, you live in the city of Grand Rapids, you're going to pay an income tax that is higher than what you would normally pay if you were working downtown and not living downtown. So every time you create a condo unit downtown, you're actually increasing the tax base for the city through the income tax as well. So keep that in mind. If in fact maybe this has no impact whatsoever on whether someone's going to live downtown or not live downtown, but it's something just to keep in mind that there are other ways the city benefits by having people living downtown. No one's questioning the benefit to the people who live in those units, but just throw that out there as another thought.
So I'll conclude with our nonprofit analysis, which is fairly brief. So currently, nonprofits are voluntary. And that did not change in the state law. So nonprofits continue to be voluntary, and in downtown Grand Rapids, you got 87 parcels that are about 15% of your parcels in your district. There is a discount that nonprofits use to calculate their voluntary assessment, and essentially they pay 60% of the full assessment. The only suggestion we had here is we want to make sure that the discount is related to the benefits they receive. And similar to our analysis on condos, we think any property, regardless of use fully benefits from the clean and safe services. And that's about 90% of your budget. So we think a more appropriate adjustment is 90% as opposed to 60%. However, this one we're least enthusiastic about recommending changes here because we're concerned that these folks are voluntary as it is. And if we did increase from 60 to 90%, we're concerned that you might actually lose revenue as opposed to gain revenue. So we do think there is some tweaking that could happen with nonprofits. But of the three areas that we looked at, this is probably where the consultants have the least enthusiasm to recommend changes for. And Melvin, I don't know if there's another slide, but that would conclude my comment on it. Aha, there is another slide. So, but my comment still concludes. We suggest you leave your nonprofit rate alone.
Do we know what our current collection rate is for nonprofits? They're voluntary, so I know it's not 100%.
I do not have that in front of me. Annually in the budget, what we account for as uncollected revenue is right around $150,000. I don't know what that translates to overall from the class 2 properties, but that gives you a sense of the magnitude. And that's based on the historical voluntary payments.
I agree with Brad's comment. I mean, without knowing the collection rate, I agree with Brad's comment. I think there's a lot of nonprofits are under tremendous pressure.
Yeah, Brad, is yours, that one slide in the nonprofit shows the 100% would be 145,000? Go to the previous slide there, Melvin, or whoever's got them. Oh, the next slide, I guess the following slide. Up one. Up another one.
Well, then we're in condos.
Not on there. I'm looking at it. It's on
the last slide. I think it's hidden by the
last page.
By the option bar on your screen. Yeah.
Shows 145,000. That's about the number I was thinking. That's close to what Tim said. All right.
Okay.
Good. Any other questions on this? This reauthorization committee met one last week, Tim, I think. Went through these with Brad. I think you got the digest of what we were considering. The bottom line is what do we do for this coming assessment year, which would be start in the summer. The options are to do nothing, just continue with the current year assessment. There's been discussion of doing a 3-year assessment or a 5-year assessment. It sounds like the committee is leaning towards probably doing nothing, just extending the current district, all the terms and the benefits and everything in the budget for one more year, given that COVID is still here. Businesses are not opening up yet. We need to let people get back on their feet downtown before we, throw something new at them. Let them get reestablished. So the general leaning at this point is that we will probably come back to the DID board with a 1-year authorization with no change in the budget or characteristics within the district. Denny and Tim, is that where you understood we were? We're gonna have Brad do some more analysis.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add, I think, and I'm curious obviously to hear from the other committee members. I think the general sentiment is another 1-year extension to see where we are in June of 22 is the thinking. I think the snow melt combination is probably the only thing that we'd be looking at possibly advancing at this point, given the challenges we've been having with Monument Park.
This is Denny. I concur with those recollections.
Yeah, I was going to affirm that too. I think that, I heard a comment earlier about how not-for-profits are under a lot of pressure. I would just like to make a blanket statement that not-for-profits are under a lot of pressure, businesses are under a lot of pressure, residents are under a lot of pressure. So where this budget comes from, I think that this isn't the year to do dramatic changes. And I think that the steps towards being really cautious and doing very minor adjustments that don't strike anybody in a way that they're not expecting this year matters. But to the earlier point that there are fewer downtown residents right now than there will ever be, and if there's going to be a change made for condo owners, working towards that in the next year seems very strategic to me. And I would just again affirm what I did in that committee meeting, which is that downtown condo owners are receiving a lot of benefit from the programming, from the Clean and Safe, from the Ambassador program, in a way that brings value to properties in a similar way to the businesses receiving value. So I still continue to feel like there's some balancing of the equation of how these services get paid for that makes sense to me moving forward.
Hey, Tim or Bob, could we, if we readdress the assessment of the condo owners next year, we basically approve like we're talking about as is to go forward a year. Right. Could we phase it in, or is it all at once? Could we say, hey, here's the assessment, we're gonna bill it at 50% the first year, and then it moves up to 100% the second year to, I guess, feather it in? Is that a possibility?
Sure.
I believe so. Yeah, I think we could structure it in probably any number of ways to kind of ease into it. I'd ask Councilor Wood to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think we could structure it how we think is most appropriate.
No, it absolutely could be phased in.
Okay. That's helpful.
Any other comments, observations before we move on?
Just from a timing standpoint, just so everyone's aware, our next board meeting is scheduled March 25th. So we'll be advancing the final plan at that point. We'll have at least one more committee meeting between now and then to, I guess, review some additional analysis from PUMA. We'll have to confirm our schedule for city commission with the city as they're going through their budget, but just wanted to put a reminder out there that at your next meeting is when you would see these final recommendations come forward. So if you have any questions as we're leaving this or other thoughts for consideration, please let myself, Bob, Melvin, or anyone else on the call know.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's move on. Tim, you're going to give us an update on the retail, downtown retail?
I will, yeah. I also just wanted to say thanks to Brad, who I think is probably stepping off now. Although you're welcome to hang out, but thanks to Brad and his team for their help on that.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and appreciate you having us back, and appreciate your willingness to jump into the weedy numbers. We'll be back.
Good work, and we got a couple little tweaks to make, but appreciate your work. It's helping very much. Thanks.
Yeah, and on this one, for the benefit of the board and looking at our time right now, we're a little behind schedule. Included in your packet was a presentation that the DDA board received last week. I also sent along a link of the presentation so that if you wanted to see the full scale of it, you're welcome to peek at it. It's about 20 minutes before we get into Q&A from the DDA. I just wanted to remind everyone that we are doing this retail analysis recovery strategy right now. What this is helping us understand is the current state of retail, both nationally, but in our downtown market. And then the second phase of it is going to look at tactics and strategies to help achieve some of the goals that we know the community has. So the work is not done. In the phase 2 is really where we'll start to get into strategy conversations. I'll be bringing this back to you so that you can see those tactical recommendations. But in lieu of kind of getting into the weeds here, maybe Amanda, if you could forward to I think the third from last slide. Keep moving there. I think maybe go back. Just leave it here. Leave it here. This is great. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at. both the consultant team as well as staff have been in conversations with stakeholders, leasing professionals, et cetera, to do some outreach. And then, as I mentioned, we'll start to come back with some tactics. I think the big picture conversations that are going on through this, and that we talked about at the DDA a little bit last week, were that, no surprise to all of us on the call, but we have a large downtown, particularly for a city of our size, and large in the sense of it's the footprint is big, so we're kind of sprawled out. And that in the retail world, and anyone that works more in this space would kind of lead with this, is that the idea of adjacencies and co-tenancies is primary when you're thinking about creating a retail experience and environment. And because our footprint is so dispersed, we have, in a sense, diluted our retail environment. So part of the conversation that I think is going to be had over the next 6 to 8 weeks is, if we want to affect change in the retail and create the experience that I think the community values, we need to think really strategically around how to consolidate our footprint. And maybe it's down to looking at one particular street or a particular block on a street to start with, and then growing it from there. But we're going to have to make some intentional decisions about where we want to direct both policy, so thinking about our zoning, but also and incentives, but then also just what is the mix that we think can be successful. So that's really the conversation that we've been having in a nutshell. And again, I'd point you to the presentation in your packet and that link to learn a little bit more. But with that, I'd be happy to take any questions or hear any additional thoughts or feedback on that.
Anything for Tim? Any questions, comments?
Tim, this is Monica. Just had a quick question about timeline. With phase 2, you mentioned 6 to 8 weeks. Is that like starting for the next phase, gathering information, and then also what is expected to be kind of the final part of this process?
Yeah, so the final report, we are scheduling Mike to be at the DGRI Board of Advisors meeting. So that's February 24th. I don't know that the report will be final by then, but I think it'd be largely complete. And then the report, would potentially follow that. And that would be sort of a list of options and strategies for us to consider locally, and for DGRI to help take the lead on. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. But the phase 2 component is already underway.
So Tim, I had a question. When you were just speaking, we're talking about consolidation in the retail area. Is that what you meant?
Possibly. That's one of the things that will be discussed.
As an idea.
Yeah, that's right.
Tim, on slide 9, it says Grand Rapids nailed it versus primary shopping destination. You know what, that seems like kind of a juxtaposition, competing ideas. So which one more? I guess it's not 9. It's 9 in the
yeah. No, I think you're looking at the presentation from the packet, Eric.
Yeah, I am. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Keep going.
It's not, man. It's not in this slide deck.
Oh, it's not in this deck. Okay.
No, this is an abbreviated version.
Okay, so it says Grand Rapids nailed it versus primary shopping destination.
Yeah, the point there, I'm happy to talk further about that, Eric, if you have specific questions. But really, the idea of downtown as the destination shopping area has kind of not been the case for a number of decades. When you think about the development of Woodland Mall, Bretton Village Mall, but what Grand Rapids and what downtown has been able to kind of evolve toward is this experiential destination that's built around restaurants, shops, events at the arena, convention center, et cetera. So I think that's the point being made in that slide.
Okay, good. That makes sense to me. Thanks, Tim.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Tim, you want to go on? Anything you want to report?
Yeah, I dropped a couple of slides into this deck. I think the main thing I want to highlight for everyone, hopefully you're aware of it, but our World of Winter event has started and kicked off last week. This is a shot from Anabawan Park. obviously, looking across the river toward the convention center there. This is the Hibby Kozo installation that I think we mentioned at our last meeting that Kim walked through. So just wanted to remind everyone that this is happening. If you want to learn more about the event schedule, some of the other programming that we have coming, please visit our website at worldofwintergr.com. That'll have an updated calendar, description of some of the art pieces, as well as a map to kind of show you how you can navigate the experience. This picture really, I think, does a great job. Those installations are fantastic, particularly at night. The one right in the middle there was actually a partnership that we helped design and have purchased. So that the one in the middle that's a little lighter colored there will be staying in Grand Rapids, and we'll have to find a permanent home for it. But that was done in partnership with the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians and local artist Alan Campos. So it's got some really significant elements to it that highlight the Native American community. And so we're kind of thrilled to have worked with them, and that will be staying long term along our river and in downtown. There's another installation underway as of yesterday morning that'll be done shortly. That is the you'll see it in the next slide, but it is the lit up seesaws. That is right across from or near the skate park at 555 Monroe, so up in Monroe North. Those will be done, and we hope that you will come check those out, because those will also be lit up at night. They'll make sound, and you can see the full team out there helping those get installed. So quite a bit going on. As you can imagine, events like this are all hands on deck, but want to give a special mention to Kim and our events team for helping to pull this off, because it's going to be spectacular. It'll be around through the end of February, so if this weekend doesn't work for you, we hope to see you downtown at some point between now and when the event wraps up. I think looking at the clock, those were the big things I wanted to highlight. There's a lot of other activity going on, but I think this is the primary focus of the work for the moment.
Good. I see we get lots of chat, and congratulations on stuff being done. That's good. Thanks. Well, we're down to the end. Any public comment from anybody? Anybody in attendance that wants to say something that's not part of the board or commission? Hearing none. For the good of the order, do any of the board members have anything they want to add or comment on? Or
I have one item that's been popping up over the last maybe couple of weeks, especially the last couple of days. I wanted this board to be aware of. There's a group that's circulating a petition to make Hardside Park an urban campground, and there's just not a lot of good information out there about it. The news is picking up on it, but there's not, I would say, not terribly good reporting about the actions the city did when they addressed, a challenging homeless situation down there. There is a really good memo that I bet the city could share that's been shared briefly, that has a full detailed list of all their engagement leading up to when they started addressing the really poor conditions in the park, and they provided a safe alternative nearby with housing for folks, and they worked with other organizations in the area, some of the social service providers. The narrative's kind of snowballing right now, and I think that, as folks who are serving on this board and the impact this conversation has on the perceptions of our downtown and the folks that pay into the district, that we should be more informed on this and just ready to engage if things were to go negative on it. It's just been unfortunate and difficult, because I think the city did a tremendous job of addressing a safety issue and really improving outcomes for everyone.
Thanks for bringing it up, Josh. Sorry, Bob. I was just going to say, we do have that memo. We've shared it with some of our leadership, but we're happy to send that out so everyone can see it. It really builds on some of the conversation that we had with the homeless outreach team at our last meeting when Tammy was here. But yeah, please take a look at that memo. I think, as Josh mentioned, just continuing to work with the city to get the word out on the work that's already happening, and make sure that people that live in Hartside and use this park as a as a recreational area or their front yard know what is maybe being talked about for future plans there. So we'll get the memo out and expect to have some more discussion with stakeholders in the coming weeks.
Josh, I agree, and the memo is a great memo, and we all ought to see it. The city has done a yeoman's job in trying to address this, and I think positively and for everybody, but unfortunately, the media doesn't, it's not sensational. You know, yeah, anyway, that's, I've said enough.
So I think Josh was also going to suggest that advocacy might be important too.
Oh, yeah. Has the news met with anybody at the city about this to get more information, or?
We've told them, our story and told them what we've done and what we're doing. I mean, we've invested millions of dollars in homelessness during the pandemic, and we took great care with Hartside Park.
Right.
So the idea of an urban campground there is not well thought out. So and there are other solutions that could be more long-term and could be better. So, but the group that's advocating for it has created a petition, and it's an online petition. I think they might have 1,000 signatures already, something like that. And so they are advocates, and they will advocate for it. So, we will provide facts about about Hartside Park, but I think Josh and Tim are onto something else that might help as well.
Yeah, I'll say it that if you want to get informed on it, I'm happy to talk further. I know Tim would be, or other folks at the city. Be informed and consider engaging with the commission. The last public comment period, only 6 individuals called in at City Commission, and I think 3 of them weren't from living or working in the city. But the press picks up, and the headline is not accurate with the actual number of folks that called in. And so we need folks to be willing to make statements as well, because it's an important issue. And again, what's really disappointing is that I thought the city did a tremendous job of improving outcomes for the individuals that were experiencing homelessness, but also for the neighbors, the residents that use that park, the businesses around there that are already struggling this year, and making it a safer outcome for everyone. And we need to back them up for being responsible.
And this is Denny. I think there's even more to learn from other groups. From this whole process, that the planning for this happened before there was a single tent in the park there at all. It was a COVID-19 response. I know that there were conversations going on with Mel Trotter very early, anticipating a need for more shelter space because of spacing and social distancing issues. And so the media's response was essentially that this was created for the tent, the people in the camp. And the fact of the matter is that the planning for trying to address it, the city had a long effort at trying to figure out how to address some of what was going to be anticipated with the large numbers of people on the street, and it's COVID-19 and the social distancing problems that all these shelters have. So the story is much bigger. Media, that's always been true. The media is going to report whatever they report, and you hope that maybe a tenth of it or a third of it's accurate.
Thanks for bringing it up, Josh, but right on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn the meeting. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks.
Stay healthy.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thank you all for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks.